Don't throw away the pink envelope. It's for Jungkook and Jimin. The little girl's desperate whisper barely escaped her lips before a violent coughing fit shook her frail body. The heart monitor erupted into a series of sharp, frantic beeps that echoed through the hospital room like cries in the darkness. Nurses rushed inside as oxygen tubing slipped from her trembling fingers, while her mother froze beside the bed, unable to move as fear swallowed every breath she tried to take. Outside, thunder rolled across the midnight sky. Rain lashed against the hospital windows, blurring the city lights into shimmering rivers of silver. The little girl's tiny hand reached toward a pale pink envelope resting on her bedside table. Its corners were decorated with hand-drawn cherry blossoms. Across the front, written in careful but shaky handwriting, were only two names: for Jungkook and Jimin. Her fingers brushed the envelope before falling weakly onto the blanket. A nurse gently picked it up. "I'll keep it safe." The little girl smiled faintly. "No," she whispered. "Promise? You'll let them read it?" The nurse nodded through tears. "I promise." Only then did the child finally close her eyes, allowing the doctors to continue their work around her. Her name was Yuna. She was 8 years old. She had spent nearly half her life inside hospitals. Some children remembered birthdays by cakes and balloons. Yuna remembered hers by different hospital rooms, different floor stands, different doctors whose names she learned better than the names of neighbors she barely knew. Yet somehow, she never stopped smiling. Every morning before blood tests, she tied a pink ribbon around her wrist. Every evening before sleeping, she whispered 3 wishes. The first was for her mother to stop crying. The second was for every sick child to go home. The third never changed. "I hope I can thank Jungkook and Jimin someday," her mother once asked why. Yuna smiled. "Because they always look like they're trying to make everyone feel safe." That answer quietly broke her mother's heart. Years earlier, when chemotherapy first stole Yuna's long black hair, she had refused to look into mirrors. One afternoon, her mother accidentally played a BTS concert video on the television. Yuna watched Jungkook laugh after making a small mistake during a performance. Then she watched Jimin comfort another member with nothing more than a gentle smile. "They're not pretending to be perfect. No. They're just kind." From that day forward, every difficult treatment began with music. Whenever fear tightened around her chest, she imagined sitting between Jungkook and Jimin beneath a sky filled with stars. Whenever injections hurt, she quietly counted to 10 while imagining them cheering for her. 1, 2, 3. "You can do it." She whispered those words to herself every single day. Even the nurses eventually began saying them before each procedure. Weeks turned into months. Months became years. The illness grew stronger. Yuna became smaller, but her hope refused to disappear. She filled dozens of notebooks with colorful drawings. Jungkook holding an umbrella over children standing in the rain. Jimin planting flowers in a hospital garden. The 3 of them eating strawberry cake beside a window filled with sunshine. Each drawing carried the same message written in tiny pink letters. "Thank you for making scary days beautiful." No one knew she had also been writing a letter. Not even her mother. Late every night, after everyone believed she had fallen asleep, Yuna quietly reached beneath her pillow. She opened the pink envelope. She read every sentence again. Sometimes she erased words. She was afraid of leaving without saying thank you. That fear became the reason she continued writing. Early the next morning, sunlight slowly replaced the storm. Soft golden light entered the room. Yuna opened her eyes. Her breathing remained difficult, yet she smiled at the sunlight. "It smells like spring." Her mother looked toward the window. The hospital garden below had begun blooming with fresh flowers after the night's rain. "You always notice beautiful things." Yuna giggled quietly. "They notice me first." A nurse entered carrying breakfast. Yuna barely touched the food. Instead, she pointed toward the pink envelope. "Can you put it closer?" The nurse gently placed it beside her pillow. Yuna rested one tiny hand on top of it. Now it won't feel lonely. The nurse quickly turned away so the child wouldn't see the tears filling her eyes. Downstairs in the hospital lobby, volunteers were decorating a small reading corner for children. Colorful paper butterflies hung from the ceiling. Someone placed stuffed animals on tiny chairs. Soft piano music drifted through the building. For a brief moment, the hospital no longer felt like a place filled with illness. Felt like hope. Yuna could hear the distant piano from her room. She closed her eyes. I think Jimin would like this song. Her mother smiled. I think he would. And Jungkook would clap for the pianist. I'm sure he would. She laughed softly before another painful cough interrupted her. The room fell silent. Even laughter had become exhausting. That afternoon, her doctor entered carrying new test results. His expression revealed everything before he spoke. Yuna noticed immediately. It's okay. The doctor looked surprised. You don't have to smile for me. Those simple words shattered the careful composure he had maintained all morning. He sat beside her bed instead of standing. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Yuna reached toward the pocket of her hospital gown. She pulled out a tiny folded paper star. I made this. The doctor accepted it carefully. When you feel tired, look at it. He blinked away tears. I will. It helps. She had spent years comforting the very people trying to save her. No one understood how such a small child had learned such enormous kindness. That evening she asked her mother to brush her short hair. Very gently. The same way she used to before she became sick. When her mother finished, Yuna smiled into the small mirror beside her bed. I look different. You look beautiful. I think. She paused. I'm finally brave enough to look. Her mother hugged her carefully. They stayed like that for a long time without speaking. Outside, the setting sun painted the clouds with gentle shades of pink and gold. The same colors decorating the envelope waiting quietly beside the bed. Yuna reached for it once more. If they ever read this, she whispered. I don't want them to cry. What do you want instead? Her mother asked softly. I want them to keep making children smile. She placed one final kiss upon the pink envelope before closing her eyes to rest. Its delicate paper now carried more than words. Carried years of quiet courage, countless dreams, a little girl's gratitude, and a hope gentle enough to survive even the deepest sorrow. Somewhere beyond the hospital walls, beneath the same evening sky, Jungkook paused during rehearsal for reasons he couldn't explain. Across another studio, Jimin looked toward the sunset and smiled without knowing why. Neither of them realized that a little girl they had never met had already changed their lives forever with a single pink envelope filled with love. Morning arrived quietly, but room 514 did not awaken with the usual sounds of cheerful greetings. Instead, the steady rhythm of the heart monitor echoed through the room like a fragile promise, reminding everyone that every heartbeat was precious. Yuna opened her eyes slowly. The first thing she searched for was not her mother, not the nurses, not even the sunlight spilling across the floor. It was the pink envelope resting safely beside her pillow. When she saw it, a faint smile appeared on her pale face. It's still here. Her mother gently nodded. I told you it would be. Yuna carefully placed both hands around the envelope as though she were protecting a tiny treasure. I dreamed about them last night. What happened in your dream? We were in a flower field. Were they singing? Yuna shook her head. No. What were you doing? We were making flower crowns. She laughed quietly. Jungkook's crown kept falling apart. Her mother laughed through tears. And Jimin? He fixed it. For a brief moment, the hospital room no longer felt heavy. Felt like a place where dreams could still breathe. Later that morning, a young nurse named Hannah entered carrying a small box wrapped with a pink ribbon. I have something for you. Yuna tilted her head curiously. What is it? A gift from the Children's Art Club. Inside the box were dozens of handmade paper butterflies in every color imaginable. Each butterfly carried a handwritten message from another child. You are brave. I hope you smile today. We're cheering for you. Yuna read every message one by one. She refused to rush. Every word mattered. When she reached the last butterfly, she noticed it was completely blank. She smiled. I know what this one needs. The nurse handed her a marker. With slow, trembling hands, Yuna wrote, Never stop believing in tomorrow. She folded the butterfly carefully and placed it back inside the box. If another child gets this, she smiled. Maybe they'll feel less scared. Across the city, Jungkook sat quietly in a recording studio. The producer played the same melody several times, waiting for feedback. Instead of answering, Jungkook stared silently at the lyrics lying on the piano. His thoughts drifted somewhere far away. Lately, he couldn't explain why children in hospitals kept appearing in his mind. He remembered messages from fans thanking him for helping them through difficult treatments. He wondered how many faces had smiled because of music. How many tears had quietly disappeared. He whispered almost to himself. Meanwhile, Jimin visited a charity exhibition between rehearsals. One wall displayed drawings created by children receiving long-term medical care. He stopped walking. One picture immediately captured his attention. It showed two boys sitting beside a little girl under a giant cherry blossom tree. Above them was written, Even if we never meet, thank you for making me feel like I have big brothers. Jimin stood frozen. The drawing felt strangely familiar. He smiled gently before bowing his head in silent gratitude toward the unknown artist. Back at the hospital, Yuna asked her mother to bring her favorite notebook. Its cover was decorated with faded stars and tiny rabbits. Every page contained memories, little poems, drawings, dreams, pressed flower petals collected from hospital gardens. She slowly turned the pages until she reached an unfinished drawing. It showed a concert stage, thousands of glowing lights. In the center stood Jungkook and Jimin, but beside them remained only an empty outline. Her mother noticed. Yuna nodded. I was waiting. For what? I wanted to know what dress I'd wear. Her mother smiled sadly. What color would you choose? Without hesitation, Yuna answered, Pink. Of course. And white shoes. You've thought about this a lot. Every hospital night. She laughed softly. I always imagined walking onto the stage. Her mother gently stroked her hair. You would have looked beautiful. Yuna closed the notebook. I still believe dreams are real. Her mother blinked. Even now. Especially now. The afternoon passed peacefully. Several children from nearby rooms visited with permission from the nurses. One little boy looked frightened before receiving his next treatment. Yuna noticed immediately. She reached toward the box of paper butterflies. Pick one. The boy chose the butterfly with her handwritten message. He smiled after reading it. I'm still scared. I know. Were you scared too? She nodded honestly. Every time. What did you do? I smiled anyway. Did it help? A little. The boy smiled back. I'll try. As he left, one nurse quietly wiped away tears. No medicine in the hospital had ever comforted children the way Yuna's gentle words did. That evening, Yuna asked for colored pencils. I have one more picture to finish. Her hands shook from exhaustion, but she refused to stop. Slowly, carefully, she colored the empty outline beside Jungkook and Jimin. A little girl wearing a pink dress, white shoes, a flower crown. When she finished, she smiled proudly. There. Her mother leaned closer. It's beautiful. I finally made it. She signed the corner of the drawing with tiny letters. One day. As sunset painted the sky outside in shades of rose and gold, Yuna slipped the finished drawing into the pink envelope beside her letter. If they ever open it, she whispered, I want them to know I already met them in my heart. The room grew quiet again. Outside the window, cherry blossom petals drifted gently across the hospital garden, carried by the evening breeze like tiny pieces of hope floating toward tomorrow. Yuna watched them until the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon. Then she smiled peacefully, holding the pink envelope close to her heart, knowing that love written with sincerity could travel farther than any distance, reaching people who had never met her, but who had unknowingly filled her hardest days with light. The first rays of dawn slipped through the hospital window, painting the white walls with a warm golden glow. For a few peaceful moments, room 514 felt almost ordinary. Birds sang outside, nurses exchanged quiet greetings in the hallway, and the scent of fresh flowers drifted in from the hospital garden below. Yuna slowly opened her eyes. She smiled when she saw the morning light resting on the pink envelope beside her pillow. It looks pretty today, she whispered. Her mother gently squeezed her hand. It does. Yuna looked toward the window. I think spring is saying hello. Her mother pulled the curtains open. The cherry blossom trees outside were covered with delicate pink petals dancing in the soft breeze. They're blooming just for you, her mother said with a trembling smile. Yuna laughed quietly. No. They bloom for everyone. Even now, she found a way to think about others before herself. The nurses entered carrying breakfast, but Yuna only managed a few small bites before setting the tray aside. I want to save my energy. For what? Her mother asked. I have one more thing to write. The nurse immediately brought her a notebook and a pencil. Yuna rested for several minutes before beginning. Her fingers shook more than they had the day before. Each word required enormous effort. She wasn't writing another letter. She was writing a list. At the top of the page she carefully wrote, things that made me happy. Number 1. Watching BTS videos with mom. Number 2. Seeing the sunrise after a long night. Number 3. Strawberry milk. Number 4. Making paper butterflies. Number 5. Listening to rain while imagining Jungkook and Jimin singing. She paused often to catch her breath, smiling after every sentence she completed. Her mother quietly watched from beside the bed. There were no complaints on the page. No anger. No questions asking why life had been unfair. Only gratitude. The list continued until the final line. Number 20. Being loved. Her mother covered her face with trembling hands. No parent should ever have to read words like these written by a child. Yet somehow, instead of filling the room with despair, they filled it with peace. Later that afternoon, Dr. Seo entered to check on Yuna. He had cared for her since the beginning of her treatment. He had watched her grow from a lively little girl with long black hair into a child whose courage inspired an entire hospital. As he examined her gently, Yuna smiled. Doctor. Yes. Have you been sleeping enough? He blinked in surprise. I should be asking you that. She giggled softly. You always look tired. He smiled. I'll try to rest more. Promise. I promise. She nodded with satisfaction. Good. Even in the middle of her own struggle, she still worried about everyone else's well-being. That afternoon, volunteers gathered in the hospital garden to release dozens of colorful paper pinwheels made by children receiving treatment. One nurse carried several pinwheels upstairs and placed them near Yuna's window. As the wind turned them slowly, Yuna watched with shining eyes. They're dancing. They are, her mother replied. They don't need music. The wind is their music. Silence settled comfortably between them. Outside, the spinning colors reflected softly against the glass, filling the room with gentle movement. Yuna reached beneath her pillow. She removed 2 tiny friendship bracelets she had secretly made from pink and lavender thread. They're finished. Her mother carefully took them into her hands. They're beautiful. I wanted to make them stronger. They're already perfect. I hope they don't break. Her mother smiled sadly. I don't think they ever will. Yuna carefully placed both bracelets inside the pink envelope beside her drawing and letter. They belong together. As evening approached, several nurses quietly gathered outside her room. Without saying a word, they each placed a single flower into a glass vase near her bed. A white daisy, a pink rose, a sunflower, a small lavender stem. Soon the vase overflowed with flowers from everyone who had cared for her. Yuna looked at them with wide eyes. So many. They're all for you, one nurse whispered. She looked around the room. For me? No. The nurse smiled gently. For your kindness. Yuna lowered her head shyly. I didn't do anything. You did. You reminded us that hope can be gentle. Tears quietly rolled down several faces. No one tried to hide them anymore. Night slowly covered the city. The hospital lights dimmed. Only the moonlight remained, stretching softly across the floor. Yuna looked toward the stars appearing outside. They're coming. Her mother followed her gaze. The stars. She nodded. I always imagined. She paused to breathe. That every star is someone wishing good things for another person. Her mother kissed her forehead. I think you're right. Yuna smiled peacefully. If Jungkook and Jimin ever read my letter, they will. I don't want them to remember me because I was sick. Her mother leaned closer. Then how? I want them to remember that I was happy. Those words settled gently into the quiet room. Not because they erased the sadness, but because they transformed it into something brighter. The heart monitor continued its calm rhythm. The scent of flowers filled the air. The paper pinwheels outside the window kept turning in the evening breeze. Yuna closed her eyes for a while, still holding her mother's hand. Her breathing had become slower, softer. Yet her face remained peaceful, almost as if she had finally found the rest she had searched for during so many long nights. The pink envelope rested safely on the bedside table. Inside it were not only a letter, a drawing, and 2 handmade bracelets. It carried the entire story of a little girl whose greatest dream had never been to become famous, rich, or remembered by the world. She had only wished to say one simple word. Thank you. Soft sunlight poured through the window, covering room 514 in a warm golden glow. The paper pinwheels outside continued to spin gently in the breeze, and the vase of flowers beside Yuna's bed filled the room with the delicate scent of spring. She opened her eyes one last time. Her breathing had become slow and fragile, but when she saw her mother sitting beside her, she smiled exactly as she always had. Good morning, Mom. Her mother leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Good morning, my sunshine. Yuna looked toward the pink envelope resting peacefully on the bedside table. It's safe. It is. You'll make sure they get it? I promise. She nodded with complete trust. I know you will. For several quiet minutes, they simply watched the cherry blossoms outside the window. Petals drifted through the air like tiny pieces of pink snow. They're beautiful, Yuna whispered. They are. I think. She smiled gently. They never really fall. Her mother looked at her with tears filling her eyes. What do you mean? They just find another place to bloom. Those words settled into the silence of the room like a prayer. Later that afternoon, Yuna asked the nurses to open the window slightly. A cool spring breeze entered, carrying the fragrance of fresh flowers and the distant laughter of children playing in the hospital garden. She closed her eyes. It smells like home. Her mother gently brushed her fingers through Yuna's short hair. You've always loved spring, because everything starts again. She slowly turned her head toward her mother. When you're lonely. Her voice had become almost impossible to hear. Look at the flowers. I will. And when you miss me. Another quiet breath. Look at the stars. Her mother could no longer hold back her tears. She pressed Yuna's tiny hand against her cheek. I'll never stop loving you. I know. The room became still. Doctors and nurses quietly stood outside the doorway, giving them privacy. No machines interrupted the peaceful silence. Only the gentle rhythm of breathing. Only love. Yuna looked once more toward the pink envelope. I think. She smiled softly. My letter already knows where to go. Her mother followed her gaze. It does. A peaceful smile remained on Yuna's face. She looked toward the bright blue sky beyond the cherry blossoms. So pretty. Those were the last words she whispered. The room fell into complete silence. Her mother embraced her gently, thanking her for every smile, every hug, every memory they had shared. Outside, a soft breeze carried dozens of cherry blossom petals across the hospital garden. They floated upward before slowly disappearing into the sunlight. Several weeks later, the pink envelope finally arrived at a charitable organization that regularly delivered letters from young patients to artists who had inspired them. When the package reached Jungkook and Jimin, neither of them expected that such a small envelope could feel so heavy. Inside was Yuna's carefully folded letter, her colorful drawing, and a single pressed cherry blossom petal. Jungkook unfolded the letter with trembling hands. Together they began reading. Dear Jungkook and Jimin, my name is Yuna. Maybe we never met. But whenever I was scared in the hospital, I imagined both of you sitting beside me. That made me feel brave. Thank you for smiling even on days when you were probably tired. Your smiles became little lights inside my room. Please don't cry if you're reading this. If you smile instead, I'll know my letter found the right home. I made these bracelets for you. They're not perfect. Neither am I. But I made them with all my heart. If you ever wear them, even for one day, I'll be the happiest little girl in the sky. Please keep making children smile. Some of them need your music more than you will ever know. Thank you for making my world beautiful. Love. Your little sister, Yuna. Silence filled the room. Jungkook lowered the letter. Jimin gently covered his eyes. Neither of them tried to stop the tears that quietly fell. They carefully tied the handmade bracelets around their wrists. The threads were slightly uneven. One knot had almost come loose. It was perfect. Because every tiny imperfection reminded them that a little girl had patiently woven them with hands weakened by illness but strengthened by love. They looked through Yuna's drawings one by one. Cherry blossom trees, flower crowns, a spring picnic. 3 smiling figures beneath a sky filled with stars. There was one final drawing. It showed a little girl running freely through a field of flowers while 2 familiar figures waved happily from behind. On the back she had written only one sentence. Thank you for helping me believe that beautiful days always come again. With permission from Yuna's mother, Jungkook and Jimin quietly visited the children's hospital several days later. There were no cameras, no announcements, no performances, only gentle conversations. They sat beside hospital beds. They listened to children's dreams. They read storybooks. They laughed with families who desperately needed reasons to smile. Before leaving, they planted a young cherry blossom tree in the hospital garden. A small plaque rested beneath it, carried no famous names, only a simple message. For every child whose courage teaches the world how to hope. Years passed. The cherry blossom tree grew taller each spring. Children recovering in the hospital often sat beneath its branches. Some laughed. Some painted pictures. Some simply watched the petals dance in the wind. Many never knew the story behind the tree, but its quiet beauty comforted them anyway. Every spring, Jungkook and Jimin returned without publicity. They stood beneath the blossoms wearing 2 faded friendship bracelets that had never left their wrists. Time had softened their colors, but not their meaning. One evening, as thousands of cherry blossom petals drifted through the golden sunset, Jungkook looked toward the sky and smiled. I think she'd love this. Jimin nodded. I think she's still reminding people to smile. A gentle breeze passed through the branches above them. Petals floated through the air like tiny pink letters carried by the wind. Perhaps love